Humanity spends its strength chasing the next unforgettable night. We prioritize earthly indulgence, completely oblivious to the fact that time suddenly shatters. We operate under a massive, unspoken assumption that there will always be a tomorrow. We convince ourselves there is plenty of time to balance our ledgers and fix our mistakes. But that assumption fails the moment Judgment Day arrives. The clock stops, earthly progress halts, and every soul faces an immediate, undeniable accounting. Time is not guaranteed, it is strictly finite, and in one violent moment it permanently expires. With time gone, the spiritual ledger takes over. Every action, motive, and ignored plea is locked in place, ready for final quantification. This accounting follows two absolute, divergent paths. There is no middle ground. Every life maps to one final trajectory. The lower path tracks negative inputs, like selfishness and apathy, while the upper path tracks faith and radical sacrifice. The arrival of judgment enforces an unavoidable consequence. Where a soul lands is strictly determined by the historical inputs from its time on earth. The corrupted soul is defined by a continuous, active rejection of the gift of salvation. This soul drinks sin like poisonous blood. By constantly indulging in selfish earthly desires, the individual contaminates their own ledger with an irreversible spiritual toxicity. The immediate consequence of this poisoned state is the permanent shutting of the gates of heaven. A profound psychological realization follows. The individual has traded eternal peace for worthless, fleeting earthly thrills that vanished the moment time ended. Hell is not an accident or an arbitrary penalty. It is the direct mathematical result of a soul that actively chose to sever its connection to grace. That severed connection leads to the abyss, an environment defined by the total absence of light, hope, and escape. Here, the eternal fire represents a state of relentless, unending torment, where the cries of the damned never cease. This graph illustrates the absolute permanence of this state. In the abyss, the timeline hits a vertical wall and loops infinitely downward in a repeating, endless spiral. The ultimate weight of damnation is the agonizing, inescapable awareness that this permanent torment was entirely self-inflicted. On the opposing trajectory is the faithful servant, the soul who chose to walk in the light and keep the faith. This is the economy of sacrifice. On this scale, a tiny unit of extreme earthly surrender infinitely outweighs massive, towering clusters of temporary wealth and security. This economy is driven by utter selflessness. It is the moment a person looks at their last remaining resources and surrenders them to someone in greater need, because they believe that person's survival matters more than their own comfort. That act of radical empathy unseals the fetty gates of eternal life from the inside, releasing a massive wave of pure white light. Wealth hoarded on earth hits the wall of judgment and vanishes. Resources surrendered in radical empathy are the only assets that carry forward into eternity. This surrender buys entry into a state characterized entirely by unbreakable joy, glory, and peace. For the saved, the transition is final. Tears, suffering, and worldly pain evaporate instantly, replaced by a permanent cessation of all sorrow. The soul then receives the ultimate validation, the voice of the Creator welcoming them home to enter into the joy of your Lord. The brief, difficult trials of faith on earth are heavy, but they are the only bridge capable of carrying a soul into an eternity of infinite glory.